Good day and welcome to our webinar where we'll discuss how story-based marketing and advanced technology can boost recruitment success for your higher education institution. My name is Bob Durr and I will be one of your webinar hosts today. Thank you so much for joining us. Just a few very brief housekeeping issues. After today's webinar, we will be sending you links to both an archive of this webinar as well as the presentation slides that we'll be sharing. During the webinar, phone lines are muted, but you can engage with us via the questions box. If you have a question, feel free to enter it in there, and we will be addressing the questions at the end of our presentation. Today, our webinar is hosted by LeadSquared, a leading provider of marketing automation and customer relationship management platforms. As I mentioned, my name is Bob Durr, and my organization, Marketing Edge, helps businesses go to market more efficiently and effectively. I'd now like to introduce my co-presenter from Higher Ed Communications, Sharon Ushayak. Hello, Sharon.
Hi, Bob. Thanks. So as Bob mentioned, I run Higher Ed Communications, which helps universities and colleges highlight their successes, engage with stakeholders, and achieve their growth objectives.
Great. Well, thank you, Sharon, and we're so happy to have you with us today. So, in today's discussion, it's our goal to show you both how both storytelling and technology can help you improve your recruiting efforts. Now, while they may appear to be at opposite ends of the spectrum, we hope to show you how they can work together quite powerfully. So specifically, we'll be discussing the power of storytelling to influence behavior, how to use storytelling in your recruitment marketing, how technology can help you better engage with prospective students, and how to use the right technology platform to increase enrollment rates. So let's begin with a story, a brief day in the life story of an admissions or a marketing person within a higher education institution. While all schools are unique, I suspect that some of you may face challenges such as these. First is increasing competition. Higher education is growing more and more competitive. The proliferation of schools is part of it, with the number of institutions increasing nearly 30% between 1980 and 2015. Students now have more choices than ever, and with the creation of tools like the Common App, they can apply much more easily too. Next challenge is understanding Generation Z. Now, this is our primary target audience, and having an effective dialogue with this population can present numerous challenges. Known as the instant generation, Generation Z is the first group in our society raised entirely on technology. They're mobile-based and they expect immediate answers to their questions. Then there's this whole notion of doing more with less. Perhaps you have been asked by your administration to reduce your year-over-year budgets, while at the same time you have expectations upon you to accomplish more and more. Then there's the challenge that there's just so much noise out there with social media and email and texting. How do we create meaningful and personalized messages? And how do you stand out and make sure that you're getting noticed? Now, many of us in today's webinar, when I looked at some registration information, is we got a lot of marketers out there. And as marketers, we're charged with running numerous campaigns. And sometimes it seems as if we have no idea if the campaign works, or if it did work, what made it work? And often we have bosses that are wanting to know these same kind of questions: what's working and what's not working. And lastly, from a challenges perspective, is technology. It's great. There's new solutions that come in the market all the time, but how do you choose the right technology solution for your school? And oh, by the way, when you look at the challenges, you got to face all of these challenges before you've had the chance to finish your first cup of coffee in the morning. So these are challenges that perhaps you can resonate with, and from what we're hearing from our friends in the higher educational environment. So as we talk to folks who have jobs and responsibilities such as yours, these are the kind of things that we have been hearing from them. We're hearing that there's this greater increasing volume of work, and there's also a commensurate need for more and better skills. There's a larger and more diverse applicant pool, and it makes creating very impactful one-to-one messages quite difficult. We hear that data is everywhere, but it's really hard to get to. And as we mentioned before, the Gen Z population, they want immediate answers. So perhaps these are some of the things that you have heard, in and around your campuses. Wow, so I've kind of articulated a little bit of a challenging situation where we're facing some pretty substantial headwinds. Now, you probably didn't register for today's webinar to hear that, but the good news is that there are ways to address these challenges. And those challenges can be addressed and achieved by, number one, having a good story, and two, having a very strong technology platform. I'll now turn it over to my co-host and master storyteller, Sharon. So Sharon, please take it away.
Great, thanks, Bob. So I'd like to start with this great quote by Seth Godin, who's one of the leading marketing experts of our time. And he says, marketing is no longer about the stuff you make, but the stories you tell. So what I take from that is today, products and services are not so radically different from each other, making competition in the marketplace more intense than ever, and forcing organizations to be more creative in their marketing. For higher ed institutions to differentiate themselves, they have to excel at telling great stories about who they are and about the people they serve. And I'm going to explain how to tell these great stories to improve your school's recruitment efforts. But first, I want to start with some essential background information on what really constitutes a great story. So we're going to veer away from storytelling in higher ed marketing for just a few minutes because it's important to understand how storytelling works and how it can influence behavior. So first, this should resonate with those who work in the higher ed space. Storytelling really is the oldest form of education. It's how we have shared information, how we pass knowledge from one generation to the next. It's a key part of our history, evolution, and our human nature. Stories also unite us, so they create social bonding. They allow us to understand each other, the world, and our place within it. And the more we understand each other, the more empathetic we are towards one another. So storytelling really is a fundamental social and cultural activity that can strengthen our relationships. And finally, storytelling is a powerful form of entertainment that stirs our emotions, fires up our imagination, and ignites our creativity. And the suspense and empathy of a good tale engages us more than any other type of advertising and is very effective at inspiring us to take action. Universities and colleges can leverage stories to achieve these three things: inform prospective students about their programs and services, create familiarity and closeness by sharing personal accounts of current and former students, and inspiring students to take action. And of course, the ideal action is to pursue an education at your school. So stories work by appealing to both the left side of our brain, which is associated with logical, rational, analytical, and objective thinking, and the right side of our brain associated with creative, intuitive, holistic, and subjective thinking. So when a school shares information about its programs and services, along with a narrative about how those programs and services impact the lives of students, it's a winning combination because it's appealing to both our logic and our emotions. US researcher Paul Zak has found that when we listen to a story, three key chemicals are produced. Cortisol, which is our body's stress hormone and helps us pay attention and focus during important moments in a story. Dopamine helps with information processing and remembering and mediates desire and motivation. It gives us that pleasurable feeling when a story has a happy ending. And oxytocin is the trust hormone, which strengthens our connections with others by promoting pro-social, empathetic behavior. It helps us identify with the story's protagonist. So Paul Zak did a study where participants were paid to watch a video story about a father struggling with his young son's cancer diagnosis. And they drew blood from the participants before and after they saw the story and found an increase in cortisol, which is the attention-getting chemical, and oxytocin associated with care, connection, and empathy. So those who produced cortisol and oxytocin were more likely to donate their payment to charity, and also the higher the chemical levels, the more money they donated. So this is your brain on stories. They transport us into other people's worlds, and in doing so, change our brain chemistry and consequently our behavior. I want to share one quick example of storytelling and marketing outside of higher ed that I think you'll find instructive. It's a brief marketing video by Airbnb that was released in 2014 during an event to mark the fall of the Berlin Wall.
Berlin, 1987. My father was a guard on the west side of the Berlin Wall, while another man guarded the east. Eventually, the wall came down, but even after moving away, my father carried a piece of it with him. While I grew up, it lingered over all of us, a barrier between him and the rest of the world. I decided I would help by taking him back to Berlin to show him the beautiful place it had become. When we arrived, the stranger who answered the door became familiar. The guard who patrolled the opposite side of the wall now welcomed us as a friend. After that, things were better for my father. Airbnb. Belong anywhere.
This video was viewed almost 6 million times, received very positive feedback, and owned a 2% share of global conversation about the fall of the Berlin Wall. What are its strengths? It's a very human and positive message of unity. It deals with a historical issue that has major social impact, so it's very relatable. The animation is simple, which helps keep the focus on the main message. And it's brief at just over 1 minute, so great for capturing short attention spans. And importantly, it demonstrates how Airbnb helped solve a problem. So now let's take a look at how this all applies to higher education recruitment. In higher education, students are really at the start of their own epic story. They're deciding on what kind of career, future, and life they're going to have and how they're going to get there. Where higher ed marketing is effective is when it reflects those journeys back to students and then positions your school as guiding them on that journey and helping them accomplish their goals. At the high level, storytelling in your school's marketing achieves 3 key things. First, it illustrates that your school has a deep understanding of prospective students and what's important to them, their dreams, motivations, needs, and goals. And it demonstrates that your institution understands current trends and issues in higher education, society, employment, and different industries and sectors, which supports your story and demonstrates your relevance to prospective students. And finally, it paints a picture of what your institution is all about, your mission and values, program outcomes, and importantly to prospects, the outcomes of your graduates. Using storytelling in your school's marketing gives you several distinct advantages. It helps your school or programs at your school stand out in the marketplace and differentiates you from the competition, which we know is important in the crowded higher ed space. It also improves user experience, so prospective students will have a more enjoyable time browsing your site, your social media channels, or literature because the stories will make it more interesting and relatable. It builds trust, so telling authentic stories about your institution, your programs, initiatives, and the success stories of students and graduates helps prospects really get to know your school, and that familiarity helps you develop a relationship with them, which is the building block for creating trust and fostering loyalty to your school. It increases engagement, so authentic, compelling stories compel prospects to explore your school, and people love sharing great stories, so that helps broaden your school's reach. And finally, it can lower acquisition costs. So marketing materials or campaigns with compelling stories, especially those that have the potential to go viral, may result in cutting back on paid marketing campaigns. Every good story has a few essential elements. So first, there's the hero. For recruitment marketing, this will likely be a current or past student because this will help prospective students identify with your institution. However, this will, of course, have a halo effect on your school. There's the journey. So this will refer to the journey of a former or current student at your school, highlighting what it was like for them to attend your school, the experience they had, and their outcomes. There's the so what. Why are prospective students going to care about the story? So it has to provide information that's meaningful to them. It has to be relevant and interesting. And there needs to be a detractor or some sort of tension. So prospective students may face challenges such as too many school choices, price, location, feeling pressured to attend a school their parents prefer. Maybe they're a single parent or they're not sure their grades are sufficient. You need to understand and then reflect their pain points. And then I think we can go right to the next point, which is the light at the end of the tunnel or the resolution. So you want to demonstrate how your school's programs and services have helped students achieve academic goals and prepare for their career. So when shaping your school stories, make sure you have the following characteristics. Needs to be emotional. So you want to appeal to a person's feelings, the student's hopes, aspirations, fears, uncertainties, and desires. It should be logical. You want to include factual and relevant information to help with decision making. Be authentic. So make sure you're being real and honest about what your school is all about and what you're doing. You want to be personal, so you want to share intimate, vivid details about the predicament of the individuals in the story. Of course, you want to be interesting, so you want to make sure you're capturing students' attention and you want to try and increase that wow factor. And you want to be inspirational, so it needs to motivate the reader or viewer to take a specific action, which ideally would mean connecting with your school in some way. So now I'd like to share some great examples of storytelling in higher education marketing. Colleges Ontario is an association that represents 24 publicly funded colleges in Ontario, Canada, and the association coordinates a series of free work language courses for immigrants to help them integrate into the local workforce. To help them promote these courses, I write success stories about the participants that highlight their experience in the course and how it's helped them in their career. And this story is about an IT project manager from India who pursues a company transfer to Toronto, and the course helps him get the lay of the land of project management in the city. The training has been very useful in helping him get ahead in the workplace. So why this story works? It includes the tension of the newcomer trying to overcome significant obstacles of establishing themselves in a new country. It's a journey that many local immigrants can relate to. It has a positive resolution, which is the successful outcome for the hero, his career development. And readers are inspired by his progress. So we hope inspired enough to get them to check out the courses. This is an excellent example of storytelling from the University of Washington. It's a detailed article about how students at the school's College of the Environment conduct fieldwork at Block Mountain in Okanagan County to map out the area's complex geological features. The article reads like a polished magazine piece and is full of compelling images and innovative graphic features. So while short stories have been the dominant trend for the last while, this story demonstrates the trend of schools starting to shift back to longer articles that tell interesting in-depth stories. Why does this story work? Well, heroes are the students getting to go on an adventure through their education and learn while they work. The story captures the students' journey in vivid detail. It's also about the unique landscape of Block Mountain. And there's an interesting obstacle for the students, which they're trying to solve what the instructor calls a murder mystery related to missing rock layers that are 200 million years old. There are many sharp action shots of students working in the field. And the story has an important so what, which is that many field camps for students are disappearing across the US, but the University of Washington is one of the few remaining universities to offer this kind of program. So this is something that's going to really resonate with prospective students interested in this field. This story is from Ryerson University in Toronto. The school has a faculty of community services that publishes an annual magazine called Imprints that showcases its activities, research, and achievements. And this publication is an example of soft marketing where storytelling takes center stage. I recently wrote an article for Imprints on its Girard Resource Center. The center provides free or low-cost daycare, information, and support to local families. And it's also a place for early childhood education students at the university to gain practical experience, do program planning, and conduct research. So why this story works as a marketing piece? Well, it has a clear hero, which in this case is not the student or the school, but the center. But by highlighting the center, it demonstrates the benefits to all of its stakeholders and participants. It's also informative, sharing important details about the center. It highlights the personal information about the children and families who use the center. And it has a lot of emotional resonance. So it highlights how the center makes a difference in the lives of local families. And then finally, the so what of the story is we see how it promotes the well-being of children while at the same time helping students train for their early childhood education careers. Now here's an example from the University of Nevada at Reno. And it's a really creative use of storytelling. A librarian created Facebook profiles for 2 students who studied at the university 100 years ago. And on their behalf, the librarian created status updates focusing on common student challenges like tests and football games, and shared period-style photos to bring the students of yesteryear to life. So why does this piece work? Well, first of all, it's a really original idea, so it has that wow factor. It's presented as a Facebook profile, which is a format that should resonate with prospective students today. There's also an authentic element to it because it includes former students from the past, and it demonstrates the long history of this 144-year-old school. And now I want to tell you about this campaign by Georgetown University. They have a campaign that features brief videos of students sharing their stories about being accepted to the school. And this video from March of this year featured a woman named Deidre telling her acceptance story and what it meant to her.
Hey Georgetown, my name is Deidre, and today I'm going to show you my Georgetown acceptance video. A lot of things about me were different then. I mean, for one, I had shorter hair. I was still in high school and in the middle of the college admissions season, and I really didn't know what to expect. For some strange reason, I wanted to film all of my college admissions decisions, and so I actually have the footage of when I was accepted to Georgetown. I was an avid user of College Confidential, and so I had known that people were already receiving their letters that day, but I thought that I couldn't possibly be receiving one that day because I lived all the way on the West Coast, and so I didn't expect it to be in the mail. But I checked the mail every single day that month, and then I saw the letter in the mail and I hit record, and I was so scared, and you can definitely hear it in the sound of my voice. Okay guys, I just got my mail. As you can see, Georgetown came in, so I'm gonna film it. I'm really scared, that's why I'm like sort of breathing, so I'm just gonna set this up right here. Oh my gosh. It gives me great pleasure to inform the committee of accepting your application. I'm happy to offer you a place in the first year class for the fall of. Whoa. Inside my head, I know I was jumping and crying, but at that moment, I was just so in shock that I had gotten into literally my dream school from when I was a kid, and it was just so surreal to me. To Georgetown! This is awesome! I just got into Georgetown! And so that is my Georgetown acceptance. Alright, see you later, Georgetown.
So why is this story effective as a marketing piece? I think we see all the factors at play here. This story has a big emotional impact. So we see her nerves about whether she's going to get in, her elation at being accepted. You feel her enthusiasm, and this story really gives me the tingles. Also, the woman in the video comes across as very authentic and relatable. She's the hero in this story, and we are rooting for her. And there's the journey of this was her dream school since she was a kid, and now she's made it. And of course, the acceptance is the resolution to the story. So this is a very personal story that's going to resonate with students who are considering their school options. And finally, I'd like to share this video story from the University of Pittsburgh. It shows one individual, John Sullivan, being accepted to the school.
In a word, your life can change. And that word? Accepted. Welcome to your new life at the University of Pittsburgh. One of America's great universities. Big city perks, small town feel. You're going to get a world-class education.
Nice job.
You'll also have a chance to do important research. You can cheer with the Oakland Zoo.
The Peterson Event Center is sold out.
And we'll make sure you feel right at home. The University of Pittsburgh, a place with an incredible history, to which you will soon be adding your name. In a word, congratulations.
So this video story has a lot of strengths to it. For Generation Z, it's really going to resonate because it makes the student, not the school, the center of attention. There's lots of excitement packed into the acceptance announcement, so there's this emotional punch to it. And it's in a movie trailer format, so that's pretty creative. It's highly engaging and entertaining, and it makes good use of humor to get the message across. And now I'm going to hand things back over to Bob.
Thank you very much, Sharon. I hope that you heard and saw the power behind a very good and important story. I must share that I particularly enjoyed the University of Pittsburgh video as I'm a graduate of that school, so it was fun to see that. So now I'd like to discuss the technology aspect of boosting your recruitment success. I'll be providing a brief overview of how LeadSquared can enhance the ways in which you communicate with prospective students. So let's begin. I'd like to first provide a very high-level overview of the features included with a LeadSquared subscription. We'll dive into the specifics over the next few minutes, and as you can see, LeadSquared enables you to send emails, build landing pages, score leads, create automated workflows, and much, much more. So let's take a bit of a deeper look here. So we live in a multi-channel world where, in your environment, you're receiving inquiries from many inputs. Often keeping track of these sources can be very difficult and are sometimes managed using spreadsheets or manual data entry. This can be very time consuming and highly error prone. Plus, you run the risk of losing track of these inquiries. With LeadSquared, there are many pre-built connectors within the platform to assist in the automated capture of leads from phone, chat, email, WordPress sites, and social sources. Now, while it's good to know where the leads are coming from, it's even better to know the relative effectiveness of those sources. So with LeadSquared, you can quantitatively evaluate the impact of different sources. This scenario, for example, helps you evaluate Facebook versus Twitter, and you'll see quantitative insights and the relative productivity of each of these sources. So with data such as this, you may be able to make more informed decisions about how you spend your marketing budget. So in this scenario, Facebook is yielding a better outcome. It may not mean that you would abandon Twitter, but it may provide insights as to how you balance your limited marketing resources. Now, perhaps the concept of a marketing funnel is something with which you're familiar. If not, in essence, the funnel that we're demonstrating here in the middle of the slide demonstrates the progression of leads, in our case, from inquiry through enrollment. LeadSquared helps you instantly know at a glance how many prospects you have at each stage of the funnel here. Now, with LeadSquared, you can also easily drill down into different lead sources to determine which are generating the most productive leads. So in the scenario that we're depicting here, we're analyzing a notion called conversions. And now, for example, conversions may be indicative of leads that are progressing from having completed an application to those who went through an interview process. So an issue here is that as marketers, we need to be aware of conversions and conversion rates. You know, we don't want all of our leads to remain at the top of the funnel. You know, in our example here, our pay-per-click or PPC ads had the highest yield in terms of conversions versus, say, phone inquiries. So these are examples of insights that may influence your marketing planning. And seeing this data in a very simple graphical view can be really quite useful. Plus, you can compare relative performance of one campus to another. So there's just a rich trove of reports and performance information that you have access to. Now, marketing automation systems such as LeadSquared can help you track and score the behavior of your applicants. So you can not only see the journey that a prospective student is taking, but you can also assign a quantitative value to a set of activities. Plus, as we show here, once a score exceeds a predetermined limit, a team such as admissions can be automatically notified. So I'm going to drill down into this example just a little bit more. You know, what we have done here is we have assigned a point value to different applicant actions, such as requesting information or time that is being spent on your website. And once a cumulative score has hit a specified point, a defined action, such as notifying admissions, can be set up very easily. So with processes such as this, you may be in a position to be the first responder to your best potential applicants. And as we noted earlier, our Gen Zs really appreciate the immediacy, you know, of responses. Now, not all applicants or inquiries are great fits for your school. And by tracking scores of these applicants and assessing their behaviors, what we can decide or help to decide is which of these applicants may be worthy of our limited time for one-to-one follow-up. So in essence, we can use lead scoring and behavioral activities to identify the best students to which you should be reaching out. So again, we had a choice of those two applicants earlier. So let's say we have this applicant that we're going to be doing some follow-up work with. What we would be able to do is this: is prior to reaching out to him, you have quick and easy access to all of the interactions that has occurred prior to your communication. So you can look at their web page visits, the messages that they've opened. And then also with the pre-built connectors in LeadSquared, you can take a quick look at their social profiles to get a sense of their interests, whether it's sports or academic areas here. And this is the kind of information that you can, you know, kind of weave into the communication where you're going to be doing your follow-up. And furthermore, other systems like SIS can also be integrated into LeadSquared so that you can fetch and post data. So I'd like to take a few moments and introduce you to ways in which workflows can be automated. So, you know, as we talk to folks in the higher education world, you know, their time is very limited and there's a lot of inefficiency. And a lot of that inefficiency comes from having to recreate or, you know, reproduce very predictable or recurring type of communications or requests. Now with LeadSquared, what you can do very easily is build automated message flows that are triggered based upon an action taken by an applicant. And automation is really a great way to accomplish more with less. So here we're replacing manual efforts with automated processes. Now with LeadSquared, it's really easy to create automations like these. It's done with a simple drag and drop editor. Really all you have to do is simply think through the responses that you want to have to a given question or action and kind of flow chart it from there. Very easy. And automations can be based upon expressed interest by a person, behaviors on their website, demographics, and perhaps that we've already captured from a prospective student. And all of these communications or automations are based upon the triggers that you choose. It fits the way you want to respond, plus you can define the timing of when these communications occur. And because these messages can be very personalized with the very strong stories that Sharon has talked about, you know, that your recipients will feel as if these messages were handcrafted by a person just for them. Take a second and drill down a couple more features of automations here because they are really great time savers. Triggers, again, we talked about that briefly, is that These are actions or things defined by you that initiate a process. So for example, it could be the completion of a form on your website, or the submission of an application, or a submission for a request for information, or when a lead perhaps has hit a certain lead score. So we have certain triggers, again, that are things that you would define. And then you would decide the conditions. So in other words, when an action has happened, you will decide first, well, when will I take this next step? So in the example we have here, you may wait a day or two to take an action. And then you can also establish conditions such as the if-else scenario. And really what that means is if an applicant took a certain action, then you will respond in a certain fashion. Or conversely, if they took a different action, then an alternate path is pursued. So again, these are all things that you're able to define yourself. And then lastly, the actions. In other words, you've got the workflows going here, and ultimately the actions could be that you would notify the admissions department, or send details, course details to the applicant, or send the person a text message, or send a lead to your SIS system. So again, all these type of triggers and conditions and actions are defined solely by you. Now, data and metrics are crucial in many organizations. And, we've heard that, boy, there's data everywhere, but I just can't find it or get to it. And it can be a real challenge. The beauty of our automations is that with data and metrics can be tracked and measured along each step of an automation that you've built here. So as you build an automation, you can drill down into each area and isolate parts of your process that maybe need to be refined or improved. So again, you've got really good analytics associated with each and every stage of the automation process. And why we're talking so much about automation, it goes back to a challenge that we're hearing. For many schools, adding staff may not be an option. In fact, maybe headcount reduction is occurring. So automation can really help solve the problem of dealing with the volume of a broader applicant pool. And as Sharon explained, if you've got a compelling story to share, you want to make sure it's efficiently provided to the best applicants. And if you're in a situation where you can't hire more people to address the volume, marketing automation and CRM can definitely fit that bill. Now, often you want to send a prospective student to a landing page where very specific and focused content is offered up. Sharon shared some really great videos there. You may want to send someone to a landing page where you just focus on that particular video. Now, LeadSquared enables you to create and deploy really beautiful, great landing pages. You can do it in a snap. It's really easy. Plus, you can also design very customizable and attractive email messages that you can design and deploy and send right within LeadSquared. So it's really very simple and efficient ways to communicate and reach out to your prospective students. So, at the end of the day, we're often accountable to results, and you need to understand and assess what is or is not working. Just have some examples here of some customizable reports that you can have in a dashboard. You can see how your campaigns are performing, where lead sources are most effective. So you can really wrap your arms and dive deeply into the metrics of what's working, and it can help you inform future actions that you may want to be taking. So, there's a lot of marketing and admission tools in the market today. You've probably seen and heard from many of them. Now, some of them may not meet your needs. They may be good, but they don't have things like automations or lead scoring. And conversely, there can be some that are just these monsters. They've got all these bells and whistles, and they cost an arm and a leg. They're just, ridiculously expensive. So, on those two ends of the spectrum, why we really think you should consider and evaluate LeadSquared is that it's very easy to use, it's very easy to learn it. And the good news, especially for your friends in the IT department, is you really don't need to rely on the IT team. So much of LeadSquared can be done without the support of IT. So you're not really relying on them, and they can use their time for different activities. You can access data very simply. It's all very centralized. There's automation and scoring can really provide, I call it the prescriptive intelligence. So you know which person to call and how soon or how quickly you need to contact them. You can stay connected with great student applicants and share powerful stories that I hope you will be developing. And you can really achieve all of this in a very, very cost-effective manner where you can see a super high return, on your marketing investment. So as we're kind of wrapping up today's webinar, we really hope that you enjoyed and learned. We hope we conveyed to you kind of the power behind great stories and how technology can help improve your recruitment efforts. So what we'd like to do now is turn it over to your questions. As I mentioned earlier, you're able to address questions by typing them into the question box, and we will be fielding those questions. And I see that we've got a number of questions already. In fact, one of these, which I will be asking Sharon, looks like Janice is asking to Sharon, is how can I identify good story ideas that will work in my school's marketing? So Sharon, can you address that?
Sure. So one of the strengths of this sector is that it's really ripe with great stories, and a great place to start is with your school's alumni department. They should be able to provide you with examples of alumni who've been successful in their careers. If you're looking for examples of current high-achieving students, you can put out a request in your school's employee newsletter asking to send you examples, or you can approach the individual deans of different academic departments to see if they know of any examples. Another way to do is to do a search on LinkedIn and use the filters to home in on students or graduates from your institution and even by a specific career field. Or you can do a Google News search to find current stories about your alumni.
Great. Thank you, Sharon. Now I see another question here. Let me read this. And this is probably going to be one we have some of our friends from LeadSquared on the phone here. The question is, does LeadSquared support text message marketing?
Hi, this is Rajat here. The answer is yes. LeadSquared supports text messaging as good as the email marketing, email automation. So text messages are not only tracked, they can be automated, and they are two ways. So you can receive the message and also send the message. And we are partners with Twilio, and you can directly purchase the SMS text messages from Twilio, or you can contact us to add it to your account.
Thank you, Rajat. Now I see another question here, and this looks like a Sharon question, is what are the best channels or platforms to share our school stories?
Right. So like with all marketing, you want to make sure you're sharing your stories in the contexts in which they'll be accessed by your target market of prospective students. So making those determinations is going to depend a lot on doing research to know where these students are and which platforms they're using these days. I think it's also important to research your demographic and stay on top of trends through different publications and blogs that monitor higher education trends, and you can see what's working and what's not working for different schools. That said, there are a few key areas to share these types of stories. So your website is first, but within your website, if you have a microsite or a landing page, as Bob mentioned, for newer prospective students, that's a great place to share these types of stories. You can also share them on the academic department sites or program pages, because those would be common areas where students will search. You should also include these types of stories in your view book, and if your school has a community magazine or an alumni magazine, also great places to share these types of stories. And of course, you want to share them on your social channels. So maybe that's Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter. You already have a sense, and your institution probably has some data already on which are the social channels that's working for your school. So those are all the main areas to consider.
Great, thank you, Sharon. So another question I'm seeing here, looks like another question for our friends over on the LeadSquared team is, how is a system like LeadSquared any different than campus login or campus management for that matter? So I think there's some campus related platforms out there. So Rajat, could you address that question about your differences between those platforms?
Yeah, sure. Actually, this is a difficult question to answer unless you have tried LeadSquared. So one distinct advantage would be as you said, you will not need your IT team that often. So UI and reporting is really simple in LeadSquared. There are tasks which looks very difficult, like lead distribution. It takes weeks, if not months, to figure that out in some of the bulky platforms. but in LeadSquared, they can be done in the matter of minutes with our automation engine. Another difference would be the market updates. We update our software weekly, and we have a lot of higher education and career schools as customers. So we know their pain points and we listen to them, and we make changes as per their requirements. So we are very much in sync with our customers. I would like to say one more advantage would be it is very much efficiency oriented. So at the end of the day, many platforms can do the same thing, but the what comes out from LeadSquared is how it reduces the efforts and maximizes the results. And we have 14-day free trial. You can check it out, and then only you will realize the full potential and the simplicity of the platform.
Very good. Thank you, Rajat. I appreciate that. So are there any, I'm looking at the panel here, whether it's Sharon or Rajat, are there any other questions here that we have not yet addressed from our panel? Anything else? I see a question here about integration with website chat tools. Is there any comments that anyone has about website chat tools?
Yes, LeadSquared has direct integrations with live chat, and it has integration with Zendesk and Zopim. And there are, I think, a couple of more chat platforms. So you don't need to write any code or anything. You just have to click on a button and your website will be synced to LeadSquared.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Well, I will. Oh, go ahead, Sharon. Go right ahead.
One other question here about presentation of stories and, you know, how to make stories look attractive and resonate. And so I think along those lines, I mean, there are certain key elements that you want to include in each story. Obviously, a heading and a subheading, they need to be concise. Ideally, they need to be clever, but at least engaging. You want to have pull quotes so that, you know, the stories, parts of the story pop off the page. You want to think about imagery as well. And there are lots of free resources for budget-strapped marketing departments to access design resources. So for example, Pixabay is a website where you can download images for free. And they have a really huge stock of decent quality images. And also a lot of people these days for design are using Canva, again, another online tool where you can add design flourishes to your articles. And as far as length, I mean, you know, it can really vary according to the context. And, you know, we know people have shorter attention spans these days. So 300 to 400 words might be an ideal length for a story. But again, if you're dealing with a community magazine and you have the space and resources, 1,000 words, 1,200 words. So it really does depend on the context.
Very good. Thank you, Sharon. Well, we'll keep our questions open here for another few moments, but I did want to make sure that as we are wrapping up here, providing you some contact information as well as some special offers for those that have been part of today's webinar. So Sharon, I might just ask you to speak to some of the benefits of your VIP club.
Sure. So for those of you who are interested, you are welcome to join my VIP club, and that gets you a few key things. So first, there's a free consultation where we'll chat over the phone, and we can discuss your current marketing needs for your higher ed institution, and then I will provide you with 3 concrete recommendations on how to leverage storytelling in your specific marketing context. You'll also receive weekly tips, ideas, and insights on higher education marketing, and you'll receive a free tip sheet on making your school's website more media friendly. So my contact information is there.
Great, thank you, Sharon. That's I encourage everyone to sign up for that club. It sounds wonderful. And my friends from LeadSquared have shared that they have put together a very attractive pricing program for those of you that have been part of today's webinar. If you do sign up with LeadSquared, and by the way, Rajat mentioned that there is a free trial, which we would really encourage you to sign up for the free trial so you can experience the product, you know, directly. But there is an offer to have 30% off of an annual subscription, as well as having a significant 50% discount on the onboarding fee. So this is very attractive pricing to a program that is already very competitively priced. So this is really wonderful pricing here. And as as you can see here, the contact information for Rajat, who has been on the call and answered a few questions here. So we would very much encourage you to take advantage of both Sharon's offer as well as that of LeadSquared. So thank you so much. So I don't believe that there are any other questions that we have today. And as we are, wrapping up today's, presentation, once again, we'd like to thank you all so much for taking out time to join us today. We will be sharing back with you again the copy of the slides as well as an archive to the webinar. And we would again really encourage you to reach out to both Higher Ed Communications as well as LeadSquared to see ways in which you can help your higher education institution, recruit much more effectively in today's competitive market. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it, and have yourself a wonderful remainder of the day. Thank you. Good day.